Okay, I want to introduce your project 3. This should be a little bit more of a fun project. You're actually going to design a few letters. You're going to start our part. It's going to be a two-part project. Our first part is going to be hand drawing. Our second part, you're going to get on the computer and you're going to work in Adobe Illustrator. And you are actually going to design 4 letters. So you're going to create original letter forms based on the proportions of your calligraphy. You're going to use the same calligraphic hand that you used in your calligraphy project as your basis for your letter designs. So they need to match the same general height and width, but from there you can be very creative. So you have a few basic rules you need to follow. Your letters must match the proportions of your calligraphy. They must be recognizable as letters, and they must be black and white. Aside from those 3 very simple rules, you have free reign. So this is a very creative project. So step 1, you're going to use your calligraphy marker, and you are going to write these 4 letters, N, O, A, and E. You already know how to do this. Use the guidelines. Draw 4 letters. Try to get some good ones. So this is a photo I took of me doing the process. I needed to get warmed up a little bit. I drew a few. I wasn't quite happy with them. I did some more. Still not quite happy. Then I did a set at the end. I said, these are good. Yes. And you'll see I made a little note to myself. These are good. Then I went in with straight edge and just drew in the baseline and the X height in pencil on top of my drawing, just as a guide to help me with the sketching. Step 2, you're going to lay your calligraphic letters under a sheet of tracing paper, and you are going to do pencil sketches for ideas for your type. You should do at least 5. You'll notice these ideas are all over the place. The only thing that keeps them in common with the calligraphy, is the proportions. They have the same ratio of width to height. You'll notice I'm also writing rules. This is going to be very important as you move forward to keep in mind your rule for how you're designing these typefaces. So these are not complex algorithms. They're really just simple statements of what your rule is for how you're designing. So on the top, I said triangle terminals, angled sans serif bottoms. My second one, I said they're 6-sided shapes, and I drew myself a little sextagon just as a visual explanation. The next one are circles and ovals in a stencil style, so everything is made up out of these curved ovals, and things are disconnected like a stencil. My fourth one it's very thin. It's a very thin typeface, and it has ball terminals and curled finials. So there's balls at the ends, and then very curly terminals. And my last one is just melting. I want it to look like candle drips, wax melting. So from those 5, so you should do at least 5. You may do more. If you have more ideas, keep going. But you want to have at least 5 different ideas for step 2. And this is just a photo of how you do it. You lay your calligraphy sheet underneath a sheet of tracing paper, and then you trace over those. You trace over for the proportions. It's not literally tracing, it's drawing on top of them just to ensure that you have the same proportions. Step 3, you're going to choose your 3 best ideas from the pencil sketches, and you're going to create marker sketches. The marker sketches are uh, uh, not just a tracing of your pencil sketches, they're a refinement and an improvement. Take the opportunity to make these a little bit better. And this is how you'll do it. You'll lay your pencil sketch under another sheet of tracing paper, draw over it in marker. Please do not draw in marker directly on your pencil sketches. Please do it with another sheet of tracing paper. You need to keep the record of your pencil sketches. And also, if your marker sketch doesn't work out quite like you anticipated, you can just slide it up and do another one. It's very easy. You should keep evidence of every step along the way so that you can always look back and compare, is my idea working out like I originally thought it would? Yes or no? If no, why not? And then part 2, which is going to be our second week, you're going to create the letters digitally. So part 2, you're going to move from hand drawing onto the computer. But we won't worry about that just yet. So part 1 is to do steps 1 through 3. Then we're going to share and critique your marker sketches. This critique will help you decide on a design. So what I want you to bring to the next week's class are all of your sketches, all of your pencil sketches, and your 3 marker sketches. You should have an idea of which of your 3 marker sketches you want to move forward with. If you're not sure, that's okay, but if you do think so, if you do have a favorite, or you have 2 favorites that you're trying to decide between, let us know. Now, I find some students just are raring to go at this point, and they're like, yeah, I get to be creative. And others are like, I don't know what to do. So, if you already have lots of ideas, go to it. If you would like some idea starters, here are some. If you don't know what to do, here are some ways to think about it. So one is you can make style changes to individual parts, like terminals, finials, counters, strokes. Like that one example where I was saying, well, I want all the terminals to be round balls. I want all the finials to be curly. So you could say, well, I want all my counters to be square, or I want my counters to be star-shaped. That would be a great strategy. Another strategy is to look to our type classification categories and maybe say, I'm going to make letters that are like one of these classifications. I'm going to make modern style letters, or I'm going to make display and decorative, or I'm going to make old style. You may also think of art movements. You may think of futurism or cubism or pop art. You may take some inspiration there. You may think of vernacular lettering, like handwriting, sign painting, graffiti. These would all be examples of vernacular lettering that you see in the world around you today. And the last one, well, what else? What other idea starters do you have? It's up to you, after all. And I think this is an important point when we talk about a design process. A lot of times when you're starting out, you don't really have an idea of what you're going to do, but you need to start the process anyway. Our society has many myths about creativity, and one of them is that inspiration comes to you in like a bolt of lightning, and you suddenly know exactly what you're going to do. The reality for a working artist and a working designer is, more often than not, you just dive in and start sketching. You don't really know, you just follow a design process, and the process often takes you places that you weren't anticipating. So basically, don't wait for the idea before you start doing the work. Let the work lead you to the idea. I want to share a few remarkable pieces that different students of mine have done with this project. So this is Philip. He wanted to make a very blocky, square, digital-looking typeface. He was sort of going for a science fiction feel. So he squared everything off, and then he limited himself to 3 different shapes in corners. Corners and endings. So you'll notice corners can either be square or they can be slightly rounded. And endings can either be squared off or they can be pointed. Now, my one complaint about this is I think his lowercase e, he could have handled some of the corners a little bit differently and a little bit better. I think his e might work a little bit better if he had rounded corners on most or all of the outside corners, and I would love to see his N get either a square or a pointed corner on the top left-hand side. But aside from those little nitpicky things, I think he did a fine job here. Paige, she wanted it to look, she wanted to maintain some of the feel of her calligraphy, but wanted it to be more exuberant and fun. She was really thinking about fun. And she couldn't decide. Did she want solid letters or did she want them to be outlined? So she was an overachiever and she did both. And this is a very good thing. This is something good to remember. Is that being an overachiever as a designer is a very good thing. So don't be afraid of that. Lillian, she did these sort of claw-like, almost scratchy strokes. If you look at these letters structurally, they're actually very, very much following the calligraphy pen strokes. All of these shapes, all of her letters really follow the calligraphy style that you learned. However, she sort of imagined a different tool that has these scratchy, claw-like ends to it. So really fun, kind of a wild look. It kind of looks very 80s, 1980s to my eyes. It's also, it looks much easier than it was for her to create this. She spent a lot of time working out, well, will the ends have 3 points or 4 points? How regular will they be? How irregular will they be? And with the O and the E especially, where points are crossing each other, she spent a lot of time working out exactly how the different points crossed each other. If they were too overlapping, you sort of lost the feel that she was going for. Not overlapping enough, it looked disconnected. So she spent a lot of time in there. Nick did something very interesting here with positive and negative space. So he basically said, well, all the counters are going to be this squiggly line. And he really played with the inside and outside. It's almost like an optical illusion that, a lot of these are one continuous line and don't really have an outside or an inside. It's something that, if you look at it analytically, it doesn't seem like it should work at all. You shouldn't, I feel like you shouldn't even be able to recognize these as letters, but he made it work, and it's really interesting. I would like to see a little bit more refinement of the overall shape. I think, for example, his O and E sort of have they are leaning to the right a bit more, while the N and the A look very upright. But but I think this is a fantastic idea, and he executed it fairly well. Marvin did shadow letters, where basically the shadow makes up the letter. The strokes of the letters are actually negative space, and what we see are the shadows. This is another one where it seems like a simple idea, but he had to spend a lot of time making sure enough of the letter was revealed for it to be legible and keeping it consistent across all four letters. And Ku did one. He wanted it to look like writing. He wanted he wanted it to look like someone had written this with a very kind of rough implement. You'll notice that he adopted a single-story A instead of a two-story A. That's fine as long as you keep the proportions. And then once he had spent a lot of time refining the shapes, then he went in and roughened the edges because he wanted it to look like somebody had done this with like a piece of a charcoal pencil or a China marker or something like that that gives you a kind of a rough finish. So very nicely done. Okay, so that's all I have to show you. Please look over the brief carefully for this project, and let's get to work.